Welcome to a pictorial and historical overview of the cities of Crystal City, Festus, and the town of Hematite, three communities in Jefferson County, Missouri. My name is Bernard Laban, and I'm the president of the Jefferson County, Missouri Heritage and Historical Society. Our society formed the Bicentennial Committee of Jefferson County. Jefferson County celebrated its bicentennial in 2018, 3 years before Missouri became a state. One item that we have in our museum is a summons from 1821. Notice the top of the summons. It originally said Territory of Missouri, but Territory is crossed out and the word State was written in. So this was a leftover summons sheet that was printed before Missouri became a state, and no reason to waste the summons. Just cross out the old and put in the new. Festus and Crystal City are known as the Twin Cities. Besides having separate school systems and emergency entities, it has always seemed it was just one big town to me growing up. In this aerial photo from the 1950s, you see Festus closest to you, then Crystal City is up against the Mississippi River. This photo was before the Festus Public Schools built their newest high school, elementary school, and football stadium. This photo also precedes Interstate 55. This aerial photo, taken in the 1960s, shows the new Festus football stadium and elementary school, but still no Interstate 55. Interstate 55 came through Festus in the late 1960s. The history of Crystal City and Festus starts in 1868 with 3 men taking samples of a sand outcropping at the base of a great hill, rearing as a landmark above the Mississippi River. Samples were sent to England, where analysis revealed the sand to be of the unusually high quality necessary for making plate glass. Captain Ebenezer B. Ward of Detroit became interested in the area and organized the American Plate Glass Company. In 1872, building started, with workmen recruited from area farms. A town started to grow up around the factory, and though it was called New Detroit, the people called it Crystal City, which it has remained. This business endeavor failed. Following the death of Captain Ward, the factory and lands were sold for $25,000 in 1877 to a new corporation, the Crystal Plate Glass Company of St. Louis. In this advertisement from the Crystal Plate Glass Company, you can see the great size of the factory and all the different departments, the casting hall, grinding hall, smoothing hall, and so on. By 1888, the new company was producing 8,500 feet of rough glass a day from 5 furnaces. The company owned all of Crystal City, ran a store, built a railway to the river landing for coal, and under separate incorporation owned a railway connecting with the Iron Mountain line at Silica, 3 miles west. In 1895, the factory, town, and holdings were purchased by the plant's final owner, the Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company. Known as PPG, it ran until the early 1990s, having employed thousands of men and women, and even college students for summer work. That is when I was employed for 2 8-week periods in the late 1980s. This is a great photo of several workers and a large polishing wheel at the PPG plant. Here is a very early photo of PPG, known as Works Number 9. This is a different view of the plant, printed on an old postcard. Here is a great double-sized postcard of the Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company, Crystal City, Missouri. This is a photo postcard of the Pittsburgh Plate Glass office building. This is a current photo of a similar building next door to the office building in the previous slide. It is of the PPG Hospital. Currently, it is privately owned and used as a home. Directly across Mississippi Avenue from the office building and directly across Bailey Road from the Crystal City Bank are these 2 guard towers. Armed guards would take their place in the towers when money was transferred to and from PPG and the bank. Before I proceed, I want to expound upon something. I've devoted several slides to Pittsburgh Plate Glass, Works Number 9. Crystal City and Festus would not be here as we know it if the American Plate Glass Company, the Crystal Plate Glass Company's works, and ultimately Pittsburgh Plate Glass hadn't set up the glass works on Platten Creek in Jefferson County. Personally, I'm a fourth-generation PPG worker, having spent those 16 hot summer weeks in the 1980s, my dad working there for 40 years, my two grandpas working 43 and 44 years, and a great-grandpa working there for 36 years. I can safely say that my family's lives have been drastically changed. One of my grandpas moved to the area from Poplar Bluff for the job, taking the job at the age of 17 after fibbing about his age. We are definitely a PPG family. Here is another picturesque photo of the guard towers, with the Presbyterian church seen through the trees. Here is Grace Presbyterian Church on the corner of Bailey Road and Mississippi Avenue. The management group and other workers of PPG were from England, and they wanted a place for their families to worship. In 1879, St. John's Mission was established. The mission met in a hall over the company store. Around 1891, the name of the mission changed from St. John's to Grace Episcopal Church, with the Crystal Plate Glass Company erecting a handsome stone church. It was opened by the Bishop of the Diocese for divine worship on the third Sunday in Advent. In March of 1892, the first baptism took place. Here is another clearer view of the church. And here's a photo I took in 2018. It is a beautiful church with a gorgeous park-like front yard with a large water fountain. It is a favorite spot for the taking of prom and wedding photos. At the corner of 2nd Street and Mississippi Avenue stood a municipal building. It was the idea of C.G. Taylor, who was superintendent of the Pittsburgh Plate Glass Company. In 1916, he implored the company's board of directors to supply the city a place for its municipal offices. Crystal City also needed a library, bowling alley, and a movie theater, and he told the board, and they ordered construction of a building that would include all those elements. The facility was opened in 1917 and cost $35,000. After the old municipal building burnt down in 1981, the new City Hall was erected. This photo is from 2021 and is taken from the same spot as the previous slide. Next to the municipal building on the next block going north on Mississippi Avenue was the Crystal Hotel. Here is another view of the Crystal Hotel. This is a view from 2021. This is the same building, although the back half of the building has been removed and other brickwork completed. This is the Frisco Railroad as it came north along the Mississippi River into Crystal City. Here is a 1968 photo postcard of the Frisco train depot in Crystal City. This is a photo postcard of the Crystal City High School, built in 1939. This is a photo of the Crystal City High School around 2010. This is a photo taken in the 1960s facing north on Mississippi Avenue. This is the original business district, and the street is made of cobblestone. Here is a 2020 photo looking the same direction down Mississippi Avenue as the previous slide. Moving on out to Highway 6167, known as Truman Boulevard, we see the First Baptist Church on the left, and the train trestle going over the highway in the background. This photo is from the later 1940s or early 1950s. This is a photo when the new Baptist church was being built in 1954 through 1956. After the new facility was completed, they tore the old building down, and it is now used for church parking on the northwest corner of Highway 6167 and Bailey Road. This is a photo postcard of the completed First Baptist Church on Highway 6167. Notice on the card it says Festus, Crystal City. Several of the churches and other entities in the Twin Cities refer to their town as Festus-Crystal City, or simply the Twin Cities. This photo from 2021 is taken from the same spot as the photo from 2 slides back, looking north on Highway 6167. On the most western edge of Crystal City, as you're getting ready to enter Festus by way of East Main Street, is the Sacred Heart Catholic Church. This building was dedicated on November the 24th, 1918. I will insert this photo and information here. This is the first Catholic church in the Twin Cities and was located in Festus on the corner of 2nd and Church Streets. The parish was founded in 1877 by Reverend McNamee. Going back to the 1918 Sacred Heart Catholic Church building, here is a photo of the inside of the church, taken in the mid to late 1940s. This is a photo of the altar of Sacred Heart, taken in the late 1940s. Here is a photo of the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in 2018. The Twin Cities have a hospital. Construction began in 1955 and was called Jefferson Memorial Hospital. In 1967, your narrator of this slideshow was born there. The hospital is now called Mercy Hospital Jefferson and has grown considerably over the past 66 years. We are now entering the Festus section of this slideshow. This photo is probably one of the oldest photos of Festus in this presentation. It is looking west up Main Street and was most likely taken before 1900. If you own the Tanglefoot books by local historian Howard Litton, this is the photo that is used on the cover of both books. Crystal City was a company town in the truest sense. As the glass factory grew, Crystal City grew. The factory owned the homes that the employees lived in. There was a company store to shop in. They built the church, they built the bank, and they were behind the building of the municipal facility. And probably most important to the birth of Tanglefoot, or Festus, was the fact that the glass factory would not allow alcohol within 1 mile of the glass plant. In some instances, you don't want to get between a man and his bottle. An area of saloons, bars, and other places of entertainment started to build up around the outskirts of Crystal City. This would have been during the later 1870s and early 1880s. The area was called Tanglefoot by many because of all the drunks getting their feet tangled as they walked the streets in an inebriated state. Another account for the name is that they would get tangled up in the brush while walking between the 2 towns. I like the first explanation better. So it was called Tanglefoot, then named Limitville, meaning that was the line or limit they crossed for legal liquor. In 1887, the name was officially changed to Festus. There are different stories as to how the name Festus came to be. An article printed only 50 years after the naming already wasn't sure as to the origin of the name Festus. One story is that some local business folks thought the town needed a proper name, so it was decided that the Bible would be opened and the first proper name that they came to would be the name. Another story is that it was named after a popular gentleman from up north that loaned money out to finance buildings in the town. His name was Festus Wade. I guess we'll never know for sure unless documentation from the time period is located to support one of the stories. Here is the Festus train station with horses and buggies outside. This was a very early hotel in Festus, the Adams Hotel. This is a great early view of Festus Main Street. This is looking east with the closest intersection being Main and Mill Streets. This is the exact same view, just a slightly more recent photo. Again, close to the same view as the previous 2 slides, but most likely from the 1940s. Here is another view of Main Street, this time looking west from the other end of the street. This is the corner of Main Street and Adams Street. Another photo of Main Street and Adams Street, this time taken on Adams Street looking north. This is the Posh store on Festus Main Street. It is said that Mrs. Posh, being a business lady in town, was the one to declare that the first proper name she came to in the Bible would be the town's name. But We will leave that to the ages. Here are a couple businesses on the north side of Main Street, close to Mill Street. An air-conditioned theater, the Eli and Walker Shirt Factory, and a Chevrolet car sales shop. Here is a neat view from the west end of town, looking toward the Mississippi River. You will notice the name J.R. Funk, druggist, on so many of these early postcards of Festus. Thanks to Mr. Funk, we have a great pictorial documentation of Festus. I would definitely consider him an early archivist of Festus. Having been a former public school band director, I am drawn to this photo. This is of the Drum and Bugle Corps, Festus Camp 3163 of the Modern Woodmen of America. Besides Festus growing up around saloons in the early days, the town also grew up around its faith. Here is the Christian Church of Festus. As referenced in the Crystal City section of the presentation, the first Catholic church was actually built in Festus. This building was dedicated in 1881. This is a photo from 1911 of the altar in the original Catholic church in Festus. Its first pastor was Reverend J. H. May. The Sacred Heart Catholic Church has a K-8 school located in Festus. This is the Festus Baptist Church in its early days. Here is the Methodist Episcopal Church located on Grand Avenue in Festus, built in 1924. Today it is known as the First United Methodist Church in Festus, Crystal City. On the left you can see a portion of the new educational building built in the 1950s. This was the first official school building in Festus. It was built in 1884 and had 3 rooms. Shortly thereafter, an additional brick classroom was built next door due to increasing enrollment. This school campus was located at 109 Walnut Street. Prior to this building, school was held in various homes or businesses, starting around 1880 by the town of Festus's first teacher, Mrs. Nellie Hunter. With increasing enrollment, a new structure was needed. It was decided to move the frame building to 113 Chestnut to be used as a residence, and I believe the 1-room brick addition was raised. On the now empty lot, they built this 7-room brick structure with a school bell on top, protected by a belfry. In the early 1900s, this building was built on West Main Street for the high school grades. Unfortunately, on November 6, 1923, at 12:30 a.m., the fire alarm sounded. The high school was completely gutted by fire. It was thought that a spark from the furnace set on fire the paper in the paper baler. That was as good a guess as any. This building was built to replace the burnt-out original high school and was built at the same location on West Main Street. The cornerstone was laid on February the 15th, 1924. Here's a photo postcard of the Festus High School. This building later became a middle school when a new high school was built on Westwind Drive. In the 1990s, it was torn down and the lot sold to the city. The city then built their city hall and police department on that site. Here is a 2021 photo of the front of Festus High School. In 1959, there was a Catholic high school built in Festus called St. Pius X and housed grades 9 through 12. It is the only Catholic high school in Jefferson County and is part of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of St. Louis. Our Ladies in Festus is a K-8 Catholic school that started in 1958. And to end the Festus section, I will show a photo from the 1990s of the old Festus jail located on the southeast corner of South Adams and North 2nd Street. It was torn down and is now an empty lot. I have always thought that it would have made a great museum. We are now going to head towards Hematite, Missouri. Between the towns of Festus and Hematite on present-day Highway P is the Eli Donnell House. It was built between 1867 and 1869 of handmade bricks. The original design is a New England modified plan of colonial Virginian style. This photo was taken in 1967. This photo of the Donnell House was taken in 2018. The white paint present in the 1967 photo has been removed, restoring it back to its original natural look. A little closer to Hematite on Highway P was the United Nuclear Corporation's reactor fuel production plant. This plant ran from 1957 until 2001. It has since gone through an extensive cleanup after it closed, and with the exception of a huge storage building and a small office building, everything has been cleared off the property. It regularly undergoes ground and water sampling because the property was, and possibly is, highly contaminated. Multiple tons of contaminated dirt was railroaded out and replaced with new, clean dirt. This is a photo of one of the beautiful barns that was on that property. At the time of this photo, the property was owned by A.D. Smith. This photo shows 60 registered Holstein cows. Hematite is 7 miles west of Festus and was platted out by Stephen Osborne in 1861. It was named for the hematite rock that is found in the area. Hematite is sitting on Joachim Creek, having had 2 grain mills at one time. The railroad cuts right through the town. This is a photo of the current post office in Hematite. The post office has been in operation since 1858. The first settler to the area is believed to have been John Wesley Knoll, Sr. On the west side of Joachim Creek stands the Hematite stone barn, once used as a flour and corn mill, and originally was called the Weber Mill. Stones were quarried on the west side of Hematite for its construction in 1855. Sometime during the first quarter of the 1900s, the mill was converted into a dairy barn. Here's another angle of the old Weber Mill. It is a very picturesque structure and was part of our county's bicentennial calendar. This was the other mill that was in Hematite and was called the Benson Mill. It was south of the Weber Mill and located on the east bank of Joachim Creek. The only thing that is left of this mill is the foundation, of which the owner of the property built a patio on. The Perkins Place, a 2-story stucco house, was built in 1883 and is located on Hillsborough Hematite Road in Hematite. It is believed to be the first 2-story concrete structure erected in Jefferson County and possibly the first in the state of Missouri. This is the Jarvis Store, owned by D. O. Jarvis, located on Church Street, which is on the east side of the railroad tracks. This photo was taken in 2018 of the Jarvis Store. It was later a church and is now a private residence. This old structure, actually 2 separate buildings, was built in the late 1800s. It served as a saloon and store and is now apartments. In the 1960s through the 1980s, it was the Hypes Store, owned by Robert Hypes. The Hematite Methodist Church was built in 1863. It is a 1-story frame church with the original bell. It is still being used as a Methodist church and is located at 406 Douglas Street in Hematite. The Hematite Christian Church was founded in 1868 by the Reverend Samuel Lee, who, while visiting relatives in the neighboring town of Victoria, saw the need for a Christian church in the area. The original building was built on land donated in 1871 by John Wesley Knoll, Sr. In 1949, a basement was excavated and a wing added. An additional wing was built in 1957 to accommodate a baptistry. The church previously used the nearby Joachim Creek for this purpose. This photo shows a new entryway and steeple somewhere around the early 1960s. Before the original building burned down in 1974, it was known as the oldest Christian church in Jefferson County. The cemetery on Church Street that used to surround the original church building is still owned by the church. This is a modern-day photo of the Hematite First Christian Church. This home was built around 1900 by Charles and Louisa Cochran. G.P. Manuel was the builder. It is located up the present-day Hillsboro Hematite Road as you crest the first hill. Charles and Louisa Cochran, parents of the famous jockey Harry Cochran, used their son's money lavishly to build this large home on a hill overlooking the town of Hematite. At the time the Hematite house was built, they had a home near Brooklyn, New York, and a home that was on the Indian Territory, according to a 1902 article in the Brooklyn Eagle newspaper. Harry Cochran raced horses in New York, New Orleans, and other venues. According to his descendants, it is said that he raced in the Kentucky Derby. On the property are 2 grinding stones, most likely from either the Weber Mill or the Benson Mill. The road frontage is fenced by stonework by Barney Laban, who bought the house with his wife Linda in 1968, and topped with a wrought iron fence, which was the original wrought iron off the Gamble Cemetery in Festus. Currently, the home is owned by James and Tish Green, and the home has undergone extensive restoration in this past decade. I close with this photo because this is a house that is near and dear to me. I grew up in this majestic old place, and Tish Green is my sister. Thank you so much for reaching this last slide. This 87 slide presentation could have easily been a 1,000 slide presentation. There's just so much history in our county. But without making it terribly boring, I kept it at 87. So many historic structures don't exist anymore, so instead of showing you a photo of an empty lot, I chose to save that for another day. Thank you.